What if the person standing between you and the life you keep praying for is not your enemy, not your circumstances, and not your past, but the version of you that keeps making excuses? You said you would become disciplined. You said you would become focused. You said you would stop wasting your mornings, stop doubting yourself, stop waiting for permission, and start building the life you know you were created to live. But saying it is easy. Becoming it requires a decision that feels uncomfortable. You must force yourself to become the person you promised you would be. Listen carefully. Your future does not respond to your intentions. Your future responds to your actions. There comes a moment when motivation is no longer enough. You have to move when you do not feel like moving. You have to study when your mind wants entertainment. You have to work when nobody is watching. You have to wake up when your body says stay in bed. You have to keep your word to yourself, especially when keeping it becomes difficult. Think about a person who dreams of becoming strong. They can watch training videos all day, buy equipment, talk about fitness, and imagine the results. But strength does not come from imagining. Strength comes from resistance. Every repetition tells the body, become stronger. Every disciplined choice tells the mind, become sharper. The same principle applies to your life. If you said you would become a successful person, then start behaving like someone who deserves success. Organize your time. Learn something valuable. Finish what you start. Stop announcing every plan and start producing results. If you said you would become peaceful, stop feeding your mind with unnecessary conflict. If you said you would become financially responsible, stop spending tomorrow's security on today's impulse. If you said you would become spiritually grounded, make time for prayer, reflection, and obedience. You cannot keep promising yourself a new life while protecting the habits that created the old one. And this is where your transformation begins. Not tomorrow, not when you feel inspired, not when everyone believes in you. Today. The person you want to become is waiting on the other side of repeated choices. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, courage over fear, purpose over distraction, and consistency over excuses, you are casting a vote for your future identity, when nobody applauds or notices your sacrifice. So make this promise serious. Do not ask, do I feel like doing it? Ask, what did I say I would become? Then get up and become it. There is a difference between wanting a better life and becoming the person capable of carrying that better life. Many people want the result, but they do not want the responsibility that produces it. They want success without discipline, confidence without courage, influence without character, and change without sacrifice. But life does not work that way. You cannot become new while continuously negotiating with the old you. Every morning, two voices compete inside you. One says, stay comfortable, you have time, start tomorrow. The other says, get up, you made a promise, your future is waiting. The voice you obey becomes stronger. If you repeatedly obey comfort, comfort becomes your master. If you repeatedly obey discipline, discipline becomes your strength. Imagine a young man who decides that he will change his life. He writes down his goals. He promises himself that he will read, exercise, learn a skill, save money, and build something meaningful. For 3 days, he is excited. On the 4th day, he feels tired. On the 4th day, he feels tired. On the 5th day, something distracts him. By the 2nd week, his old habits begin calling him back. This is where most people lose. They think losing motivation means the journey is over. But motivation was never supposed to carry you forever. Motivation gets you started. Discipline keeps you moving when emotions change. You must learn to act according to your decision, not according to your mood. If you said you would wake up early, wake up early. If you said you would finish the course, finish the course. If you said you would stop wasting hours scrolling, put the phone down. If you said you would build your business, work on it even when nobody sees progress. Do not constantly ask yourself whether the process feels good. Ask whether the process is making you better. A seed does not become a tree because it feels ready. It grows because it keeps responding to the conditions required for growth. In the same way, your potential will remain potential until you create the conditions that allow it to become reality. And sometimes those conditions require pressure. Pressure reveals what comfort hides. When life becomes difficult, you discover whether your commitment was real or merely emotional. Anyone can make promises during an exciting moment. Character is revealed when the excitement disappears, so stop waiting to feel ready. You may never feel ready. Start anyway. The future version of you is not created by one dramatic decision. It is built through hundreds of ordinary decisions, repeated until they become character. Every disciplined morning, every finished task, every uncomfortable conversation, every hour spent learning, and every temptation you refuse is shaping someone. That someone is you. Therefore, when you are tempted to quit, remember your promise. You are not simply completing a task. You are becoming the person who keeps their word. You have spent enough time imagining the person you could become. Now you must confront the person you are choosing to remain. Every promise you make to yourself creates a responsibility. When you say, "I will change," you are not making a casual statement. You are declaring war against the habits, fears, distractions, and excuses that have kept you smaller than your potential. The old version of you does not want to die quietly. It will remind you of your failures. It will tell you that you are tired. It will convince you that one more day of comfort will not matter. It will whisper, "You can start next week." But next week becomes next month. Next month becomes next year. And suddenly you are standing in the same place, wondering why your life has not changed. You must break that cycle. Consider a woman who decides she wants to become a leader. She begins with almost nothing. She is nervous speaking in front of people. She doubts her decisions. She makes mistakes. Some people criticize her. Others ignore her. But every morning she studies. Every week she practices. Every failure teaches her something. Slowly, her confidence grows. She did not wait for confidence before taking action. Her action created confidence. You do not need to feel fearless before you begin. You need to begin while fear is present. You do not need perfect conditions. You need commitment. You need enough courage to keep walking when nobody applauds. Your environment will test your decision. Friends may invite you back into old habits. Comfort may become more attractive when progress becomes difficult. This is where you must remember who you said you would become. If you promised yourself excellence, choose excellence when average would be easier. If you promised yourself discipline, keep going when excitement disappears. If you promised yourself integrity, tell the truth when lying would protect you. If you promised yourself growth, accept correction instead of defending every weakness. You are not trying to become perfect. Train your character through consistency. A powerful life is built by people who can trust themselves. When you say you will do something, do it. When you set a boundary, keep it. When you choose a goal, protect it. The more promises you keep to yourself, the stronger your identity becomes. So today, stop asking whether you are capable. Ask whether you are committed. Because commitment does not wait for permission, it moves. And every time you move despite resistance, you become a little more like the person you said you would be. There comes a point in your journey when you must stop negotiating with yourself. You know what needs to change. You know what habits are wasting your time. You know which distractions are stealing your attention. You know the promises you made when you were tired of living beneath your potential. Transformation requires self-command. You cannot build a powerful future with a mind that obeys every impulse. If every feeling can change your decision, then your feelings are leading your life. Discipline means deciding who is in charge. It means telling yourself, "I may not feel like doing this, but I already decided." Think about an athlete preparing for a championship. Nobody sees every early morning. Nobody sees the boring repetitions, the lonely training sessions, the meals carefully chosen, or the moments when the athlete wants to stop. Your life works the same way. The results you want are being created by what you repeatedly do when nobody is watching. If you want to become a person of knowledge, read when entertainment is easier. If you want to become a person of wisdom, listen before speaking. If you want to become a person of influence, learn to serve before demanding recognition. If you want to become dependable, keep promises even when keeping them costs you something. This is where maturity begins. Maturity is not simply getting older. Maturity is becoming capable of governing yourself. You must learn to tell yourself no. No to the extra hour of distraction. No to the conversation that produces nothing. No to the excuse that sounds reasonable. No to quitting because progress feels slow. Do not misunderstand this. You are not fighting yourself because you hate yourself. You are training yourself because you believe there is more inside you. A parent teaches a child discipline because they see potential the child cannot yet recognize. In the same way, you must become willing to demand more from yourself because you can see a future that your present habits cannot produce. Stop treating every difficult choice like punishment. Some difficult choices are preparation. The sacrifice you make today may be creating the strength you will need tomorrow. So when your old habits call your name, answer with action. When excuses appear, answer with commitment. When fear speaks, answer with courage. You said you would become someone greater. Now prove it through your choices. Your future will not be built by what you understand. It will be built by what you practice. The hardest battle is often not against failure. It is against inconsistency. You can have a powerful vision and genuine desire, but if your actions change with your emotions, your future will remain uncertain. Learn the discipline of finishing. Many people begin with energy. They start the book, business, exercise plan, course, prayer routine, or new schedule. But beginning is not the real test. The test arrives when excitement disappears and the work becomes ordinary. That is when you must say, I started this for a reason, and I will finish. Imagine a builder laying a house foundation. The first day may feel exciting. People may admire the plans. But after the excitement, there are ordinary tasks. Bricks must be carried, measurements checked, mistakes corrected. The weather may become difficult, yet the builder continues because the vision is greater than the inconvenience. Your life is being built the same way. Every small decision is another brick. When you save instead of wasting, you build financial discipline. When you study instead of procrastinating, you build intelligence. When you exercise instead of surrendering to comfort, you build strength. When you pray instead of panicking, you build stability. When you forgive instead of carrying bitterness, you build emotional freedom. Never underestimate small choices. A person does not suddenly become disciplined one morning. Discipline is accumulated. A person does not suddenly become courageous. Courage grows each time they do something difficult while fear is present. This means you should stop waiting for a dramatic transformation. Build quietly. Wake up and do the work. Repeat it tomorrow, then repeat it again. There will be days when nobody notices. There will be weeks when results seem invisible. You may question whether your effort is producing anything. Do not confuse invisibility with failure. Roots grow underground before anyone sees the tree. Your responsibility is not to control how quickly the results appear. Your responsibility is to remain faithful to the process. And when you fall short, do not turn one bad day into a permanent identity. Correct yourself. Learn from it. Get back up. Continue. The person you promised to become does not require perfection. That person requires perfection. That person requires persistence. So today, make a decision that cannot be controlled by your mood. Decide that you will keep moving. Decide that you will keep moving. Decide that excuses will no longer have the final word. Decide that your commitments deserve action. Every time you finish what you started, you teach yourself something. Your word has weight. And when you can trust your own word, you become dangerous to every limitation that once controlled you. There is another level of becoming, and it begins when you stop measuring your progress by how you feel and start measuring it by what you can consistently produce. Anyone can be committed when life is easy. The real question is, who are you when pressure arrives? Pressure will expose your priorities. When your schedule becomes crowded, what receives your attention? When money becomes tight, what controls your decisions? When criticism comes, do you collapse or learn? When nobody encourages you, can you still encourage yourself? You said you wanted to become strong, then life will give you moments that require strength. You said you wanted wisdom, then life will give you situations where you must choose carefully. You said you wanted leadership, then people will disappoint you, misunderstand you, and sometimes resist you. Do not interpret these moments as proof that your dream is impossible. They may be training grounds for the person your dream requires. Imagine someone who wants to lead an organization. At first, they imagine meetings, recognition, freedom, and achievement. But leadership introduces difficult decisions, disappointed people, problems, and responsibility for outcomes. If that person only wanted leadership, they will quit when the weight appears. But if they understand that responsibility is part of the destination, they grow deeply through it. Your dream has a price. The person you said you would become must be able to carry what you are asking for. If you want influence, develop character. If you want opportunity, develop preparation. If you want freedom, develop self-control. If you want success, develop capacity. Do not pray only for the door to open. Prepare yourself to walk through it. This is why you must keep learning. Keep improving your communication. Keep carefully developing your skills. Keep correcting your weaknesses. Keep strengthening your character. And when someone points out something you need to improve, resist the urge to become defensive. Sometimes correction is not rejection. Sometimes correction is an invitation to grow. You cannot become who you said you would be while protecting every weakness you currently possess. Be willing to outgrow yourself. There was a version of you that helped you survive yesterday. Thank that version, but do not allow it to control tomorrow. Your next level requires a new mindset, new habits, new standards, and new decisions. So when pressure arrives, do not run from it immediately. Ask, what is this moment teaching me? What strength is this situation demanding from me? Then rise to meet it. Because sometimes the obstacle is not blocking your future. It is preparing you for it. There is a moment when growth demands more than discipline. It demands that you raise your standards. You cannot keep expecting extraordinary results while accepting ordinary behavior from yourself. Your standards determine what you tolerate, and what you tolerate eventually becomes your lifestyle. If you said you would become focused, then distractions cannot receive unlimited access to your attention. If you said you would become excellent, then careless work cannot remain acceptable. If you said you would become dependable, then excuses cannot keep rescuing you from responsibility. You must become honest about what your habits are producing. Look at your daily routine. Look at where your hours disappear. Look at the conversations you repeatedly have. Look at what you consume, what you think about, and what you do when nobody is watching. Your life is speaking. Sometimes we say we want change, but our schedule proves that we want comfort more. That realization may hurt, but it can also set you free. A man may say he wants to build a successful career, but he spends every evening entertaining himself instead of developing his skills. Another may say she wants peace, but she constantly returns to arguments that disturb her mind. Someone may say they want financial freedom, yet repeatedly spend without thinking about tomorrow. The problem is not always lack of opportunity. Sometimes the problem is a contradiction between desire and behavior. You must bring your actions into agreement with your words. This requires sacrifice. When your goal becomes serious, some things must become less important. You may need to spend less time with people who constantly pull you backward. You may need to remove apps, change routines, protect your mornings, and say no to invitations that repeatedly steal your priorities. Not everyone will understand your new standards. That is okay. You are not changing your life to make everyone comfortable with your transformation. You are changing because you have finally become uncomfortable with remaining the same. Remember the promise you made when you were dreaming about your future. Remember the person you imagined becoming. That person had discipline, courage, wisdom, strength, and purpose. Now ask yourself, what would that person do today? Would they keep procrastinating? Would they surrender to distraction? Would they quit because someone criticized them? Or would they stand up and do what must be done? You already know the answer, so raise the standard. Do not demand perfection, but demand honesty. Do not expect instant results, but expect consistent effort. Do not punish yourself for mistakes, but refuse to make excuses for repeating them. Your future deserves your highest level of commitment. Become difficult to distract, difficult to discourage, and difficult to defeat. You said you would become someone different. Now live like you believe your own promise. At some point, you must stop asking who you could become and start asking what you are willing to sacrifice to become that person. Potential is powerful, but potential without discipline remains unused ability. The person you said you would become will require you to release certain things. You may have to release the need for approval. You may have to release your addiction to comfort. You may have to release old excuses, old patterns, and even old versions of yourself that no longer fit your purpose. Growth often feels like loss before it feels like victory. Imagine a young tree growing beside a wall. As its roots become stronger, they push against the hard ground. The tree does not complain that growth is uncomfortable. It simply keeps expanding toward the light. You must do the same. There will be seasons when your growth feels lonely. People may not understand why you are changing. They may remember who you were and expect you to remain that person. But you are not obligated to remain trapped inside someone else's memory of you. You are allowed to grow. You are allowed to become wiser. You are allowed to change your priorities. You are allowed to become more disciplined than you were yesterday. But growth requires courage, because every new level demands a new standard. If you want a better future, you cannot keep giving your best energy to things that do not matter. Protect your mornings. Protect your attention. Protect your peace. Protect the goals that deserve your commitment. Your attention is one of your greatest resources. Wherever you repeatedly place it, something grows. Give your attention to fear, and fear grows. Give your attention to comparison, and insecurity grows. Give your attention to purpose, and purpose grows. Give your attention to discipline, and strength grows. Therefore, become intentional about what you feed. Do not spend your entire life reacting to whatever demands your attention. Decide what deserves your attention before the world decides for you. And remember, becoming who you said you would be does not mean becoming someone else. It means uncovering and developing the potential already placed within you. You were not created merely to survive each day. You were created to grow, to contribute, to build, to serve, and to leave something meaningful behind. But purpose requires preparation, so prepare yourself. Read more, think deeper, work harder, pray consistently, serve faithfully, learn from failure, correct your mistakes, keep moving. One day you will look back and realize that the difficult choices were not destroying your old life. They were constructing your new one. So stop fearing the sacrifice. Sometimes what you must give up is exactly what has been preventing you from becoming everything you promised yourself you would be. Choose growth. Choose discipline. Choose your future. There comes a time when discipline must become identity. You no longer do the right thing only because you have a goal. You do it because you have decided what kind of person you are. A person who keeps their word does not need constant reminders. A disciplined person does not need applause before taking action. They have developed an internal standard that says, "This is who I am." Reach that level. Imagine a person who spent years saying they wanted to become a writer. They bought notebooks, watched lessons, and talked about their dream. But eventually they understood something painful. Wanting the identity was not enough. They had to write when inspiration disappeared. They had to revise when the first draft was weak. They had to continue when nobody responded. One page became another. Slowly, the person stopped saying, "I am trying to become a writer." They simply became one. Your transformation works the same way. Stop constantly announcing who you are going to become. Start collecting evidence through your behavior. If you want to become disciplined, give yourself evidence by keeping today's commitment. If you want to become courageous, have the conversation you have been avoiding. If you want to become knowledgeable, spend an hour learning instead of wasting it. If you want to become spiritually strong, practice your faith consistently, especially when emotions are quiet. Identity is built through evidence. Every action tells your mind, "This is who we are." That is why small victories matter. They may look insignificant to everyone else, but they are teaching you to trust yourself. And self-trust changes everything. When you trust yourself, you stop needing external validation. You know you can face difficult days. You know you can recover after failure. You know that discomfort will not automatically make you quit. But never confuse self-trust with arrogance. True strength remains humble enough to learn and disciplined enough to continue. Your goal is not to prove that you are better than everyone else. Your goal is to become better than the version of yourself that kept making excuses. So look at your life now. What promise have you delayed long enough? What decision have you been avoiding? What habit do you know must end? Do not make another emotional promise. Make a decision. Choose one action and complete it now. Then do it again tomorrow. What required force becomes natural. What once felt difficult will become part of you. And one day you will realize you are no longer chasing the person you promised to become. You have become that person. Now you have reached the final question. Will you continue talking about the person you want to become, or will you finally become that person? Your future is waiting for proof. You have said enough. Now your life needs evidence. Evidence that you can keep your word. Evidence that you can discipline your mind. Evidence that you can stand when pressure comes. Evidence that you can continue when nobody is watching. This is the moment when you stop treating your potential like a possibility and start treating it like a responsibility. Remember, you do not have to transform your entire life in one day. You have to make one decision today that agrees with the person you said you would be. Then make another tomorrow. A powerful life is built through ordinary moments handled with extraordinary commitment. There will still be mornings when you feel tired, moments when fear speaks loudly, people who doubt you, and failures that hurt. But none of those things get to decide who you become. You decide. When you fall, get up. When you fail, learn. When you lose focus, return. When comfort calls, remember the promise. You said you would become disciplined. Be disciplined. You said you would become excellent. Practice excellence. You said you would become a person of purpose. Live intentionally. You said you would become stronger. Stop running from every challenge that could strengthen you. And above everything, become a person whose private actions match their public words. Because your greatest victory may not be the money, recognition, success, or applause you eventually receive. Your greatest victory may be looking at yourself one day and knowing, I kept my word. That is real power, character, and transformation. So do not leave this message inspired for 1 hour and unchanged by tomorrow. Write down the promise you made to yourself. Identify the habit that must change. Choose the action that proves your commitment. Then execute it right now. Force yourself forward when comfort tells you to stop. Push yourself higher when fear tells you to stay small. Remind yourself who you are becoming every time you are tempted to return to who you were. Your old life may be familiar, but your future demands courage. So stand up, keep your word, build your character, protect your purpose, and become the person you promised yourself you would be. Do not wait for another sign. This is your moment. Start today. Stay consistent tomorrow, and let your transformed life become the evidence that you finally decided to become everything you were capable of becoming.